We are in drag week prep, day 1 of 2. So I figured I would go over some stuff with y'all and kind of show you what we're trying to get ready to do. So drag week, if you guys don't know, it's a drag and drive event, 1,000 miles, 5 racetracks, or 5 days, 4 racetracks. And we are getting ready to do another one of these. So we did Sick Week in February down in Florida, and then we did a Sick Summer in Illinois and Iowa and Wisconsin in June. And now September, drag week is starting at Darlington Dragway, which is close to home, and finishing up at Darlington again in South Carolina. Then we're going, so we start at Darlington, we go to Rockingham, and then from Rockingham to Bristol, Tennessee to House of Hook, Carolina, which is in Aiken, South Carolina, and then back to Darlington. So these events are fun. If you've never done one, you should. If you've got a race car and you're sick of only spending like 4 minutes every month in the car and hundreds of thousands of dollars, you should consider converting your car over to drag and drive, because you actually use the car a heck of a lot more. So anyway, I'm gonna go over just some of the stuff that we do to prep for one of these events. Some of the stuff that's specific to the car for these events. A lot of people ask to kind of show what this is, and we've been reasonably successful with this. So we won the what is it called? 235 Rowdy Radial at Sick Summer. We reset the class record, and then that was in Sick Week. And then for Sick Summer, we decided to jump into Unlimited, which is the fastest class of the entire event, on 275 radials, which are, mounted on the back of my trailer. But anyway, today I'm just going to show you what we got going on with the car, what we do to prep to get ready, and whatnot. So starting in the back end of the car, dual fuel systems. This one is pump gas. This one is alcohol. When I let the car down, I'll go over that kind of stuff with you. So these, if you're a race car guy, you're probably wondering why that tire is on there. That's the tire that we drive on the road. I wanted to kind of give a rundown of what to look for, in my opinion, what's worthwhile to spend some effort on before this event, so that you don't have to do it at the event or on the side of the road. So let's see, let's get up underneath it here. First thing, we run a belly pan underneath of the engine. So that's this right here, right? So it goes all the way up to the radiator. This is lead, or this is steel, but like lead bolts to this. So this is to help try to keep the front end down. But anyway, belly pan. This is this piece is made out of titanium just because we had some extra left over. And then we have a trans belly pan that bolts to it. Transmission, not transgender. And that's out of aluminum. So this bolts, or this Zeus is on here. Here covers up the whole transmission, and then Zeus is to the backside of the engine one. I'll drop these here in a minute. We'll go over some of the stuff underneath of there. The air jacks, I made a video on this, but the air jacks are in. They work awesome. Here, a little easier to see this side. So Performance Fab made some mounts that actually bolt on in the front, because I didn't want to have to repaint anything. So they bolt on there, and then these cylinders come out 15¼ inches, lift the car up off the ground. So anyway, maintenance items, stuff that you should look for before you do one of these drag and drives. So first off, this is a mechanical fuel pump drive, like a cable. So the cable's mounted like every 4 to 6 inches. And then there's some spots where like it can't be mounted every 4 to 6 inches, so brackets are made to kind of hold it on there and keep it from moving around. So if we go all the way up front here, there's the back of the pump. You can kind of see when I pull the belly pans off, I'll show you a little better. It comes out of the pump very straight, as straight as it can be. Bolts up to the block. It's held in place. We've got some hose clamps here. We got another brace right here. And then we just use these P-clamps along the bar to keep it nice and straight. We go up over the top of the rear end housing, and it follows the same curve as the frame rail, which this is a stock frame rail. Goes up and over, and you want to make sure that it stays nice and straight as it's going into the pump. So out of the drive up front and into the fuel pump, the key to keeping these things alive is making sure that it stays nice and straight for about 12 inches into the pump and out of the drive up front. And it's got to be supported everywhere. So in the back, let's see if we can't see this. There we go. In the back, this is the fuel filter, but there's a bracket made. Kind of see it there, right there, that this attaches to keep that thing nice and stable and straight. The fuel pump itself is all the way back here, and then you got your fuel feed right there from the alcohol tank, and then going out of there and into the pump or into the filter. So as far as fuel system goes, obviously clean your filter before you go. This is a System 1 fuel filter. This is the only filter that we run on the alcohol side. So we clean that really well before we go to one of these events. The fuel lines, always just make sure that everything's not rubbing or chafing anything. You can see there's a little nick here. It's not a nick, but it's like you can see kind of like the fiber up here. That is from me not doing a great job at mounting it originally, but it's been in there for about a year and a half like that, no problems. So we got trailer wiring here. So before we go on this, I'll wind up hitting this with a bunch of dielectric grease, and then the cap goes over top of it. It'll give you less problems down the road. Let's see. Now, as far as anything else underneath it here, there's a flex fuel sensor. Make sure that stays really well mounted, secured, because all this stuff is going to vibrate like hell going down the road, right? So all this stuff's going to shake, it's going to vibrate. So what I like to do is get up underneath it here, grab a hold of something and just start shaking the piss out of it and seeing if it runs into anything that's a problem, right? So zip ties are your friends, don't be afraid to use them. Right, so these are all the fuel lines and some transmission cooler lines. Make sure that they're all, if they're gonna bang up against something, make sure that it's not sharp. So this is a tube, it's not sharp, it can beat up against that. This probably needs another zip tie right there. So we'll throw another zip tie there, throw another one here. This is the trans sub harness auto sport connector. Probably zip tie this up here like this, up against this tube so it can't move. And we should be good to go with that. Make sure here, look at that. We got a leaf stuck up in there. There we go. Nut and bolt the car. That's a big one. Pretty self-explanatory. What I mean by that is just check all of your make sure everything's tight. Use lock washers or lock nuts. I like to use the jet nuts. Right there's one. Right there. There you go. And some marking compound. Right. So this is just like a paint marker. You can see right here we got a line. Make sure that lines up. Make sure nothing backed off. Nut and bolt everything. And then remark it. So what I'll end up doing here, before, I haven't started doing any of my nut and bolt process, but before I'm all done and I let this car down, all this stuff will be tightened, checked, make sure it's all good to go. And then I'll put a fresh paint marker across everything so that it's visibly easy to see that if I slide up underneath it here daily, I'll check to make sure that we got a good paint marker here. So after I'm done, I'll show you that all done. Same thing on the drive shaft. Make sure that that's all good. Drive shaft speed sensor. This is another one that doesn't really pertain so much to race cars, but more so to street cars. This thing has got a magnet inside of it. If you've got a magnetic wheel instead of a Ferris wheel, clean it off. It'll hold metal, shavings if you've ground on the car or whatnot. and that'll give you some pretty crappy drive shaft speed data. So clean it off real good. So what I'm gonna do is nut and bolt the whole car and mark it, and then we'll go back under here and look at it. I'm also gonna drop these belly pans so we can look up underneath of the car and see what we got going on, or underneath of the engine and whatnot, and transmission. See what we got going on up front. So give us a few and we'll be right back. All right, so we got the belly pans down. I'll show you some stuff here that we just found. I got about 60 miles on this since I've had the belly pans down, and about 4 passes. So I like to, you know, kind of get a couple passes and then do a couple miles, and then look this stuff over and see if we've got any leaks. So we got some stuff leaking. We got a little bit of oil right here. At first glance, you would think it's from there, but it's actually coming from right there, which is probably that rear main seal. If you've got a big block Chevrolet, you know the struggle. Nothing major though, right? So 60 miles, we got the oil temp up over 200. It's gonna make it sweat out. Nothing major. This will probably just be one of those things that I look at every day when we drop the belly pan, and we drop the belly pan every day to look this over, and we pull the belly pans down to drive the car on the street. So really, really minor. We got a little bit of oil over here. Again, that's realistically, it's probably coming from same spot, or it could be, you know, it could be something else, but it's so small that I'm not really gonna, you know, freak out about it. I'm okay with a little bit of a leak, which I wouldn't have said that a couple of years ago, but you just kind of grow to it and deal with it. That's why we have belly pans. So this right here, this one here, there, those little drops, that's nothing. This again is green as well, so that's engine oil. That's nothing to be concerned with. It's coming from there and splashing back up onto here and here. I run blue transmission fluid, so green engine oil, blue transmission fluid. It's easy to decipher what we got a leak from. So here we've got a little bit of a leak from the transmission, and it's coming from this fitting up here, which is up above the dump valves. So it's kind of hard to see. Let me go grab a light, I'll show you. Oh, here we go. Belly pans are great because it'll tell you where the leak started at, right? So here we are up at the, right at the flex plate. We got a little bit of a link right here. And then this is the way they bolt up, right? So like this is them bolted together in the car. And you can see it kind of sprayed from back here. This is all engine oil. And then this here is transmission. We can see this is right underneath of where those dump valves are. So we got a little bit of a transmission fluid leak. Nothing major. We'll get it cleaned up. We'll get it tightened up, make sure it's not something we can't fix real easy, and then move on. So, here with a flashlight, let's take a look. Yeah, so there it is. So yeah, it's just got a little leak coming from, look at that, right there at the fitting. So, easy fix, get that tightened up, have to drop the dump valves for that, but no big deal. So, anyway, while we're under here, let's look for some other stuff that could potentially cause us some problems. We've got the leaks looked at. Do we have anything leaking up here? No, nice and clean, all good to go. So nothing up in front to be worried about, which is good news because that's a pain in the ass to work on. Something I did notice, I dropped the belly pan. Look at that, we got a little bit of an exhaust leak. So this is pretty common with double slip stuff. You can see the discoloration. So the coating's black, obviously, and you can see a little bit of carbon coming out here. You can also see that this kind of slipped a little bit from here to here. So I'm going to tighten this up right here, this jam bolt, or this whatever tension bolt, trying to pull this back together and send it on its way. So it's a good idea to look over all this kind of stuff, see if you got any signs of cracking or anything before you go out and hit the road. The worst thing you could deal with is having to have somebody have to weld your stuff together for you while you're out on the road. So this V-band looks good, nothing there. As far as spares, I get a lot of questions about like what all do you bring for spares. I'm probably the worst person to ask because I bring everything. I bring a spare V-band for this. I bring a spare V-band for this, for the wastegate. bring a spare V-band that goes into the turbo. I bring a spare V-band that goes for the downpipe. A couple spare hoses, and let's see, this V-band looks good. We're good to go there, nothing leaking. I bring spare O-rings for the exhaust ports on the heads, belts, you name it, fan motors, connectors, you know, fluids, the whole 9 yards. So anyway, underneath here looks pretty good considering, you know, it's got about, like I said, about 60 miles and probably about 4 passes. Small drip isn't gonna put an end to us here, so we're looking good. This will all get nut and bolted. This stuff's getting rusty, and it's because we, you know, separated we had a unplanned evacuation of transmission fluid from the torque converter. So some of this stuff is gonna get rusty because we pressure washed everything up underneath of here and hit it with Purple Power or whatever it was, and or Simple Green, and well, it took off the plating on the bolts. So some of this stuff is rusty. Is what it is. So anyway, I'm going to heat up the oil and change it. Well, I'll heat up the oil, circulate it, then change it. Change the filter, cut that open, make sure that looks good, which I'm sure it does. And then we'll be buttoning this up. So take a look at all this stuff. We got a tiny little bit of moisture or whatever, oil or something on here. It's nothing to be concerned with. So this is a big one, right? Nut and bolt this stuff, Loctite, lock washers. Steering shaft is pretty important. So we'll do a you know, a mark from here to here to make sure it hasn't slipped. I'll probably back these off, hit them with some fresh Loctite, back those off, hit them with some fresh Loctite. Same thing up there, and pull them down and then mark them. So same thing with suspension bolts, all that stuff. So another one that I saw the other day, I think it was the other day, we got some, yeah. So I got a little bit of grease coming out of this here ball joint. So let's pull the wheel off and see what's going on there. I don't think the ball joints are bad. I just put them in. It might just be because I went buck wild with grease. So either way, check this stuff over. So I'm going to clean all this stuff up and mark it, and then I'm going to change oil, whatnot, drop the car down, and then we'll go up underneath the hood and interior and check over all that stuff too. Be right back. All right, so we got everything tightened, checked. This is all I do is just use like a little paint marker. I'll show you what I use, but like I put it on everything. Just a paint marker so you can see quick glance that if anything moved. So like if this came loose, we'd be able to spot it by just laying up underneath the car. Those lines don't line up. You guys have seen this stuff before. If you don't know what it is, you can either use one of these. Oh, let's go out in the sun or out in the light here. Sharpie, white, what is this? Paint pen, or this stuff works good, but it's a little bit of a pain in the ass. Cross-check torque seal by Dykem. Two other notable things that you should probably keep in your trailer or on you or use in your shop. Thread locker orange. This stuff's good because it's high strength, but it's removable. So it's not the red stuff that you can't get off. And then this stuff here, Loctite 545. This is like a thread sealant. So I either use this stuff or, well, I just started using this stuff, or paste. So anyway, the few things I found. This appears that it's loose. You can see a little movement there. It's actually not. It's not loose. It's all tight. It's just that you got some play up in the steering column, so you know, don't stress about that. Changed oil, cleaned up any leaks. Found the small leak that was up there. That's fixed. So I'll throw belly pans back on this thing, fill it back up with oil, and then we'll go up underneath the hood, kind of give you a rundown, and then I'm going to kind of give you a look at everything that we kind of pack. So give me a few. All right, so we're all just about all buttoned up here. Take the time to go over this kind of stuff because you'll find random things that are just loose. A lot of what winds up coming loose is stuff like this. anything that doesn't really have like anywhere to lock onto it, you know, like this won't, because we've got some Loctite in it and some lock washer and whatnot. But something like this this set screw may come loose. So just Loctite all this stuff, because if it's not a race car and it's a street car and it gets driven, all this stuff is going to wind up vibrating loose. So I usually use like lock washers and Loctite on everything. But anyway, oh, and for those that have asked in the past, yes, I do use a bottle of Lucas Heavy Duty Oil Stabilizer in every oil change, and I run Schaefer's 50 weight, straight 50 weight, like the micro moly stuff for engine oil, and haven't had any issues. So as far as really we go with, you know, checking over the car to make sure everything's good, clean it all up, mark it really well, and a couple other things that people have asked about with the drag and drive stuff. This little thing, it uses a air filter from a 2016 Accord Hybrid. So you just, yeah, pull that out when we're gonna race it, and then we shove it back in when we're gonna drive it. So that seems to be about the best solution that we could come up with. Matt at Performance Fab made that for me, and fits like a glove, works great. Don't have to take the clamps off or anything like that. I made another post on Facebook, but I had the radiator coated with this Cerakote heat dissipation coating. Works really, really well. I tested it the other day. It was like 88 degrees outside, and the car did better. I won't go into details, but the car did better at running cool. Cars, since we've gone through all the lengths that we did to keep the car running cool, it's always ran cool, but we knocked about right at like 13 degrees out of it in a kind of like back-to-back test by being coated. So that's a product made by Cerakote, Jake Tinsley, Tinsley's Custom Coatings in Easley, South Carolina did it for me. Another thing that people ask me about is this little radiator cap. It's made by Mazir. Hopefully you can see it there, Mazir. It's a safety cap, so this thing's pretty cool. You can't take it off until you pull this off, right? You pull this pin out, slide this section off, and then you can rotate it off. I'm not gonna do it now because I don't want anything to spill out of it, but it won't come off. It also won't lock into place unless you have it all the way on. In a rush, I found myself, we were at a shootout and I thought I had this all the way on. And it felt like it was all the way on, but it was off by a very little bit. So once it started warming up, it trickled a little bit of water out of it. And we found it before we went up to make a pass, but I like this thing because it can only go all the way on one way. Like it has to be all the way locked in, and it can't just rattle off. So this was pretty cool. It's called like a safe cap from Mazir. I like that thing. And that's about it. So, oh, and we've added an oil cooler from Earl's. Kind of hard to see because everything's black, but this guy right here, there you go. It's a narrow core, but really tall. It's only about 5 inches wide, but it's worked very, very well at keeping oil temp down. So airflow is king though on the drag and drive stuff. Make sure you can get air across this radiator. You'll be good to go. The big hole in the front bumper, while it may not be the most aesthetically pleasing thing on the planet, I've grown to like it. And functionality is fantastic with that thing. So nut and bolt your stuff. Make sure you've got plenty of spare things with you. Hoses, fittings, spark plug wires, that kind of stuff. A couple other little tips. So these are like, I don't know, they weren't very expensive little spark plug wire separators from Summit. I don't remember who made them. But what we did was clamped one leg to the EGT probe to keep it away from the header. And so far they have been, I've had 0 spark plug wire failures. I'll still bring spares, but we don't burn up plug wires anymore. So that was a big win. Yeah, hopefully somebody learned something from this. So see y'all at Drag Week.